Let's now talk about a new way of looping over arrays which was introduced in ES6, and that's the for-of loop. And let's say we wanted to loop over our entire menu here. So let's start by creating again the array with the entire menu, and for that we expand restaurant.starter menu and restaurant.main menu. So nothing new at this point. Now you already know how to loop over this array with a regular for loop, right? So you would have to go through all the steps of setting up a counter, a condition, and also update the counter. And that's a lot of work. And so that's why we got the for-of loop now, in which you don't need any of that. It's so much simpler. And this is how it works. We still write for, and then we create a variable here. Let's just call it item for now, and then of menu. And then we can log to the console simply this item. So let's see if that works, and then I'm going to explain why it works and what this loop does. So indeed, we got all our elements here now individually logged to the console. So this for-of loop, which is called for-of because it is for and then item of the menu, right? So this loop will automatically loop over the entire array, and in each iteration, it will give us access to the current array element, which we can specify here. So in this case, it's called the item, but of course we could call it anything that we want. And so if we simply log the current item then to the console, well, then this is here what we get. Simply each element logged one by one. And that's because, again, the item variable is always the current element in each iteration. And also, just like in the if-else statement, we don't need to create a code block when we only have one statement here to execute. Okay, so that's pretty simple, but it's a really nice level of abstraction over the regular for loop. So we can do the same thing with this one, but without having to worry about all the underlying details such as counters and conditions. What's also great about the for-of loop is that we can still use the continue and break keywords. And this is important because in the next section you will learn other ways of looping arrays, and in those one you will not be able to continue or to break. So you will need to keep that in mind. But now, what if we also wanted the current index and not just the current element? Well, in the for-of loop, it's actually a bit of a pain when we need that index, because originally the for-of loop was really just meant to give you the current element. However, you can get both, and you will have to do it like this. So for, and then again, let's just call it item. But now instead of just menu, we now need to call the entries a method on this array. So entries, and then let's take a look at the item. And so, as you see, each of the item is now actually an array with the index and the array element itself. So let's quickly take a look at what this mysterious menu.entries actually is. So menu.entries. And so here we get this weird array iterator. And so that's not really helpful, but we will learn about iterators by the end of the course. But if we want to take a look at this, we need to essentially expand this here using the spread operator and then create a new array based out of that. So again, this is really just to take a look at what menu.entries actually is. And so we see that it is basically an array which in each position contains a new array which contains the element, so the element and the index number of that element in the original array. And so that's why we get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus all of the original elements of the menu. And that's also the reason why then we get this output from this loop now. Because here we now basically have that array. And so now each item of that array is, well, this new array. And so now if we wanted to like print a nice menu, then we could take advantage of this data now. So let's now log something nicer here. So a template string. So let's take the first element, which is 0, and then let's actually add 1 to it so that we can start the menu at 1. So here we're basically going to display like a nice menu in a real restaurant. And so there the numbers don't start at 0, right? And now here, then the actual item itself. So that's at position number 1. And so that looks quite nice, doesn't it? So this works great here, but we are actually at this point smarter than doing it like this. And that's because if item is now an array, we can destructure it. We don't have to manually take element 0 and element 1. That is the old school way. So let's now do it in a better way. And so we can actually destructure the item array here right here. All we have to do is to use the destructuring assignment and then create the two variables that we want. So let's call it I and EL for element. And so here we can use I and here element. So let's check that. And indeed, it works the same. And so once again, destructuring made our lives a little bit easier here. So it's a really great addition to the JavaScript language here, once again. And the same is of course true for the for off loop itself, which also makes it a lot easier to loop over arrays.